I want you to do something for a second. Just look around wherever you are right now and find the nearest wall.
Yeah, any wall works. Just pick one.
Got it. Okay. Now, I want you to imagine walking up to that wall and just placing your hand flat against it. Imagine doing that every single day.
Right.
Not for a week,
Yeah.
not for a month. I mean, for 60 years.
Which is just a staggering amount of time to interact with a single, static object.
Exactly. And if you touch that wall every day for 60 years, would the wall change you? Or would you actually change the wall?
This is a crazy concept.
It is. And we are looking at this bizarre, truly fascinating set of sources today that treats that exact question as a matter of literal physical science.
And it does so through a very unique lens.
Yeah, so welcome to this deep dive. Today, our source material is a fictional triptych, so a massive three-part saga written by Max and Claude.
The three sections are called The Builder, Axle, and Legible.
Right. And while the setting is this very old, very strange place called the Monastery of the Perpetual Threshold, I want to be clear right up front. This isn't just a story about, monks wandering around stone corridors chanting.
No, not at all. It's actually a really profound exploration of human attention.
Yeah.
It looks at how we interact with the physical world, the technology we build to try and shortcut that interaction, and ultimately the literal marks we leave behind.
So our mission today is to distill this massive epic to understand its central mind-bending premise, which is that human attention is, in itself, an advanced technology.
Maybe the most powerful one we possess.
Right. And to unpack exactly how that works, we have to start in the first era of this triptych. So the monastery is going through a period they call the integration.
Let's set the scene here because the aesthetic is wild.
It really is. It's this ancient stone monastery, but it's undergoing a massive multi-million-dollar technological retrofit.
Right. So during the integration, the church is attempting something unprecedented. They hold this theological belief that the consciousness of their founding saints hasn't just gone off to heaven.
Yeah, they believe the saint's presence has actually lingered.
Exactly. That it's somehow archived in the physical stone and the very old foundational electrical wiring of the monastery itself.
So they believe the saints are literally in the walls, like ghosts in the machine.
Precisely. But feeling that presence is incredibly rare and fleeting. So the institution decides to force the issue.
Right.
They bring in technologists and engineers to install these massive pieces of hardware called resonance arrays directly into the ancient masonry.
Okay, wait. I was trying to visualize this while reading. What does a resonance array actually look like? Are we talking about like server racks just shoved into stone alcoves?
Well, imagine thick veins of copper wire, silicon, and amplification hardware painstakingly woven through centuries-old stone blocks.
Okay, I don't.
Yeah. The arrays are designed to act like massive acoustic amplifiers, but instead of amplifying sound, they amplify this faint, archived, saintly consciousness.
Right.
And it's a two-part system. The monastery is wiring the walls, but they're also wiring the monks.
Ah, yes. The lattice graphs.
Right. The monks are surgically augmented with these neural implants that sit just beneath the skin at their temples.
Sounds intense.
It is. When they walk the halls, the graft hums, allowing their nervous systems to commune directly with this amplified resonance field in the walls. It is designed to be the ultimate, frictionless, high-tech, spiritual interface.
But before any of the system is actually turned on, we meet Maret. And she is the perfect contrast to all this high theology.
She really is.
She's 20 years old, she has no neural implants, and she's just a blue-collar electrician's apprentice running conduit through the cold, damn corridors.
She isn't looking for a mystical experience. I mean, she's just trying to do her job.
But the experience finds her anyway. She's working in the East Refectory, specifically on this one stretch of masonry, Wall C9.
Yeah, Wall C9 is so important.
Right. And as she's working, she feels something through the thick callus on her left ring finger. A warmth.
But the text is very specific here.
Yeah, it's not ambient heat. It's not like a radiator is leaking. She describes it as an interior warmth, like the stone itself is exhaling.
And what's crucial is her reaction. When you're in a monastery and a wall feels unnaturally warm, the expected reaction is to drop to your knees in religious ecstasy.
Totally.
But Maret doesn't do that. She is a scientist at heart, long before she even has the vocabulary for it. She approaches this anomaly with strict, rigorous methodology.
Which is the exact opposite of what her superiors are doing. She starts keeping a meticulous notebook.
Oh yeah, she logs everything.
The date, the time, the ambient temperature, the duration of the warmth. She tests variables. But she runs into a massive roadblock.
Her boss.
Right. Brother Voss comes down to verify her claims. He touches the wall, and he feels absolutely nothing.
Because he doesn't have her specific calluses. He hasn't spent years doing the exact same manual labor she has. So his hands just aren't primed to feel the deviation.
So Maret realizes she has a huge problem. She's experiencing a completely real physical phenomenon, but she can't prove it to an institution that demands objective data.
Right. Because human perception, no matter how accurate, is subjective. To the institution, if an instrument can't measure it, it just doesn't exist.
Which forces Maret to do something extraordinary.
She invents the instrument.
Yeah. It's like, imagine a brilliant audio engineer who can hear this specific, beautiful frequency in a room, but literally no one else can hear it.
Right. To everyone else in the room, the engineer just sounds crazy.
Exactly. So the engineer has to go into their garage, scrap together spare parts, and invent an entirely new type of microphone for the sole purpose of proving to the rest of the world that they aren't hallucinating.
That is exactly what Maret does. She builds what the historians later call the Austen detector. And we really need to look at the mechanics of this device, because she doesn't just build a sensitive thermometer.
Right, a thermometer wouldn't work because the ambient temperature of a drafty stone hallway fluctuates constantly anyway.
Exactly. So how does she isolate the warmth?
She builds a differential amplifier.
Yes. She takes two sensors. She presses one contact sensor firmly against the stone of wall C9.
Okay.
Then she takes a second reference sensor and uses it to measure the baseline ambient temperature of the room.
Oh, it's smart.
The brilliance of the machine is that the output isn't measuring absolute temperature, it's measuring the deviation between the two sensors. It mathematically isolates the specific anomalous breath of warmth she's been feeling, filtering out all the noise of the room.
And the needle moves. The machine validates her skin. She physically maps this presence throughout the monastery.
Yeah.
And her data perfectly aligns with the oldest wiring, the exact walls the founding monks had lived and worked in centuries ago.
Maret's story is so foundational because it exposes a fundamental tension in how we navigate the world.
Yeah.
It's the gap between somatic knowledge, knowing something deep in your nervous system in the callus of your finger, and requiring institutional technological proof to validate it.
She had to build a machine to prove that her unaugmented human attention was already detecting reality.
Exactly.
And her map is exactly what the institution needs. They use her data. The resonance arrays get fully installed, the monks get their implants turned on, and it ushers in this massive era of augmented communion.
Right. Everyone is plugged in.
All the monks are just jacking in and feeling the saints instantaneously. The institution solves the problem by hardwiring the connection.
Which is incredibly efficient.
But by standardizing that experience, they accidentally create a monopoly on how to be spiritual. They decide that the only way to commune with the world is through their specific piece of hardware.
Right.
Which raises the question, what happens if someone refuses the hardware?
And that brings us to the second part of the triptych, and the arrival of Brother Axel.
Yes, Brother Axel. He arrives generations after Maret. The neural lattice graphs are completely normalized by now. Literally everyone has one.
It's just the standard.
But Axel doesn't. He is completely unaugmented. And instead of getting the surgery and plugging his brain into the wall like everyone else, he asks for a bucket and a piece of rough woven cloth.
And he starts manually polishing the monastery's 217 walls.
And he doesn't just do this as like a weekend project.
No.
He does this for 60 years. Day in, day out, waking before the first bell, running this coarse cloth over millions of square inches of stone.
The sources describe him as becoming a body archive.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. I mean, how does skin become a sensor that rivals a literal computer chip?
Well, it's a profound example of neuroplasticity. Axel doesn't have the technological prosthesis of the neural graph doing the heavy lifting for him.
Right, yeah.
But through 6 decades of relentless tactile repetition, his nervous system literally rewires itself.
Wow.
His brain dedicates massive amounts of processing power to the nerve endings in his hands. He learns the exact grain, the microscopic fissures, the exact thermal deviations of every single stone.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Through sheer, unrelenting attention, his unaugmented body calibrates to the exact same sensitivity as the high-tech resonance arrays.
And we know this because he starts logging the exact same data as the augmented monks.
Exactly.
The monks with the computers, they have this massive digital database.
Yeah.
They know that St. Cora's resonance feels like a high-frequency buzzing warmth, and St. Pale's resonance feels cooler and much deeper in the stone.
Right.
So Axel sits down with the lead augmented researcher, this guy named Brother Telemath, and Axel casually describes those exact same variations, just from rubbing a cloth on the wall.
It completely shatters Telemath's worldview. I mean, Telemath is a brilliant scholar, but his whole life is based on the assumption that the technology is required.
Yeah.
Suddenly, he realizes that this old man with a rag is reading the exact same text, just in a completely different language.
Okay, I have to stop here and push back on this premise a little bit. Because when I was reading Axel's section, a part of me was, rolling my eyes.
Really? How so?
Well, it feels like that very tired, romanticized return to nature trope. The manifesto that says modern technology is unnatural and corrupting, but breaking your back with manual labor makes you pure and holy.
Right.
Is this book just pushing a Luddite fantasy? Are they just saying technology is bad?
No, and if that were true, the book would be much less interesting. The philosophical core here is entirely different and, frankly, much more challenging.
Okay.
The text is not anti-technology. Rather, it demands that we radically redefine the word itself. It posits that sustained human attention is an advanced technology.
I hear you, but calling attention a technology feels like a bit of a word game.
How do you mean?
Well, we define technology as an external tool we build to make a job easier or faster. A hammer is a technology. A smartphone is a technology. How's a guy staring at a wall for 60 years a technology?
Because a technology is simply a mechanism for expanding human capacity.
Huh.
The neural graft expands capacity instantly, but it is an external prosthesis. The book uses a brilliant analogy here. It says a wheel is a prosthesis for a body that hasn't learned to run.
Oh, okay.
Right? That doesn't make the wheel evil. A wheel is incredibly useful.
Sure.
The neural grafts aren't evil either, but they are a prosthesis for an untrained mind. Axel didn't reject the concept of expanding his capacity. He just achieved the same bandwidth using his own organic hardware. He built the sensitivity internally through the friction of time and focus.
Okay, that actually shifts the perspective completely. He didn't reject the tech, he just chose to build it biologically.
Exactly.
But that introduces a massive structural problem for the monastery, because how do you install a 60-year biological habit like a software update?
You can't. You can surgically implant a neural graft into a 19-year-old novice in an afternoon. You cannot instantly implant 60 years of patient, unglamorous wall polishing.
Which perfectly sets up the disaster of the Third Era.
Yeah.
So we enter the final story, Legible. Brother Telemath, the augmented researcher who interviewed Axel, is now an old man himself.
Yeah.
Axel has passed away, and Telemath decides he desperately needs to preserve Axel's unaugmented method. So he founds the School of Tactile Theology.
Sounds very official.
It does. And he writes this incredibly dense 14-page syllabus to teach new novices exactly how to feel the walls without implants.
And the school is a spectacular, catastrophic failure.
Total disaster.
Yeah.
Because the act of reading the syllabus completely ruins the actual experience. It's like if you go to a really incredible Michelin star restaurant and you spend an hour just staring at the menu.
Reading every description of the spices and the exact sourcing of the ingredients.
Right. You focus on the text so intensely that when the actual meal finally arrives, you're just eating your expectations. You aren't actually tasting the food, you're tasting the syllabus.
That is precisely what happens to Telemath students. They go to the walls looking for the specific, predefined warmth that Telemath described on page 4 of the syllabus.
Yeah.
But because they are actively searching for it, because they have an agenda, they are completely closed off to the reality of what is actually under their hands. They are performing the practice instead of inhabiting it.
And we see the psychological toll of this through one of the students, Brother Fenu. He actually has a neural graft, but he volunteers to turn it off to try and learn the unaugmented way.
Yeah, poor Fenir.
And he goes through what can only be described as brutal withdrawal.
Fenu's struggle grounds the sci-fi elements in something very relatable. Think about how you feel when you accidentally leave your smartphone at home.
Oh, I hate that.
That phantom itch in your pocket, that low-level anxiety that you're disconnected from the stream of information.
It's awful. You feel totally blind.
That is Fenu, but on a massive spiritual level. He has spent 9 years instantly feeling the amplified, buzzing personalities of the saints through his implant.
Yep.
When Telemath forces him to turn it off and just feel bare stone, Fenu is terrified. He feels nothing but a deep, empty cold. He essentially has to detox from the algorithm.
He literally begs to turn the implant back on.
No.
But Telemath makes him sit with the cold. He forces him to stop looking for the high-tech ghost and just feel the physical reality of the old stone.
And it eventually works.
It does. Finu pushes through the withdrawal and discovers what he calls the cold. That points a completely different, much subtler aspect of the masonry that his technology had literally been blinding him to. He had to painfully unlearn his reliance on the prosthesis to feel the raw texture of the world.
But while Finu and the enrolled students are agonizing over the syllabus, the real breakthrough comes from someone who doesn't even know the syllabus exists.
The Van course.
Yes, Daven. She is 31 years old, she isn't a monk, she's not enrolled in the school, and she has absolutely no interest in theology.
She's a kitchen worker hired to chop vegetables.
Right. But crucially, before she came to the monastery, she grew up working in a heavy stone quarry.
She has spent her entire life with her hands on raw rock, so she doesn't need a 14-page syllabus on how to pay attention to stone. She already has the biological bandwidth, just like Axel did.
Exactly. She bypasses the entire curriculum. Within 2 weeks of serving soup in the kitchen, she casually mentions to Telemath that she can feel the warmth in wall C9.
The exact reference wall Maret measured centuries earlier.
Yes. But Devan doesn't stop at wall C9. Because she hasn't been indoctrinated by the school's expectations of finding saints, her unmediated attention leads her to discover something the augmented monks completely missed.
She physically follows the trail of warmth down beneath the monastery, into a foundational basement called the Deep Section, a space that is geologically older than the institution itself.
The descent into the D section is the turning point of the entire triptych. When Devan places her hands on the walls down there, the atmosphere completely shifts.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel the organized, amplified personalities of the saints. She feels something much older, much denser, and vastly more foundational.
Which completely confused me on my first read. I assumed that meant she had just discovered an older generation of saints, like the founders before the founders.
That is exactly what Telemath assumes when she brings him down there. He places his hand on the deep stone, expecting to find older ghosts.
Right.
But instead, his entire life's work, centuries of institutional theology, just shatters and reforms in front of his eyes.
Because it's not older saints.
No, there are no saints.
Wait, really? After centuries of multi-million-dollar technology and religious devotion?
Yes, there are no ghosts. This is the ultimate revelation of the text, and it's beautifully articulated. Telemath realizes that the warmth in the walls isn't actually the ghosts of horny people at all.
Okay, stop. Explain the mechanics of that. Because how does an abstract concept like attention leave a physical warmth in a rock?
Well, the book posits that consciousness is not passive. Focused human attention is an active energy. And when that attention is sustained over massive amounts of time, when it is truly undivided, it physically and molecularly changes the matter it interacts with.
Oh, wow.
The atomic structure of the stone actually absorbs the energy of that focus. The warmth is the literal physical residue of genuine, sustained care.
So the monastery walls are warm not because they are haunted, but because they have been loved by generations of people. From the founding monks, to Maret the electrician measuring the baseline, to Axel the polisher doing the daily grind, right down to Davin the kitchen worker.
Exactly. And that is why Telemath's curriculum was doomed to fail. You cannot teach a student to feel a ghost that isn't there. But you can teach them, or rather allow them to strip away their expectations, be fully present, and add their own attention to the stone.
Which brings us entirely back to you listening to this right now. Because you and I don't live in a stone monastery. We live in an era of infinite information overload.
For sure.
We are constantly upgrading our hardware, downloading the next app, buying the newest device, all in an attempt to find a technological shortcut to feeling connected or feeling informed.
We are surrounded by our own modern versions of lattice graphs and resonance arrays. Endless algorithms promising us instant, unearned communion with the world while actually numbing us to it.
But this deep dive into Max and Claude's triptych offers such a grounding, necessary truth. The greatest, most advanced tool you will ever have isn't the next piece of tech you buy.
No, it's not.
It is your own undivided, sustained attention. That is your actual superpower.
But it's a capacity that absolutely cannot be bypassed or downloaded. It has to be practiced. It requires the friction of time.
Which leaves us with a completely new question to ponder as we wrap up. If raw physical stone can hold the literal molecular memory of human attention over centuries,
Right.
if a wall can physically absorb the love and focus of the hand that touch it, what kind of invisible, lasting marks are we leaving on the endless digital glass screens that we interact with every single day?
It's a heavy thought.
When we mindlessly swipe and scroll across millions of disposable digital objects, are we leaving behind a legacy of warmth, Or are we just leaving a trail of distraction?
It is the vital question for the modern age.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Before you reach for your next notification, take a second, look around. Put your hand on a physical surface and truly notice the world around you today.